It seems to be logical, right? Because we know that the subject line directly impacts whether someone's going to open an eyeball and read that email. So we go, okay, we want to actually, that's the metric we want to be testing. But if you go in and have a look and, hey, I call it the litmus test.
Yes.
Go to your database, find the top 10 campaigns based on open rates. Then go find the top 10 campaigns based on click rate. Then go find the top 10 campaigns based on conversion. And you're going to see there's a very little overlap between the three of them, which means that
Interesting.
you are testing your subject lines based on open rates. You're probably optimizing for the wrong result.
Hi, and welcome to the 91 Day Success Podcast. I'm Jonathan, and I am so honored and privileged today to have Kath Pay with me from Holistic Email Marketing. Holistic Email Marketing is based out of London, and Kath and her team serve clients throughout Europe and North America. And I'm really excited today to dig into Kath's book. Grab it right here, Holistic Email Marketing, and learn Kath's perspective on how we should be doing email and all that. But before we dig into all that, Kath, if you would, could you give us a 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and how you got into the email marketing business and consulting?
Yeah, absolutely. And lovely to be here. Thanks very much for having me on, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Cool. 24 years ago, I was a web designer and I had my own web design business in Australia. I'm originally Australian. And one of my developers came and said, "Hey, listen, I think this could be something." Anyhow, it turned out it was a nucleus of an email service provider program. So we were one of the earliest email service providers out there, like ESPs.
Mm.
And then we came over to England and then brought it over to England. And then I decided, you know what? Marketing for SaaS is fun and all the rest of it. I want to consult everything. My day got exciting when I got to actually speak to my customers and to help them resolve issues and everything. So I just went, no. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, 14 years ago or so, I turned into being a consultant, one of the original consultants, I think, as far as email marketing goes. And I haven't looked back. So still love helping my clients. And actually, beyond, that's why I do a lot of writing. I wrote a book, all of that, trying to help marketers, even if they're not my direct clients.
I can speak for one and say I found the book to be very enlightening and had some tremendous recommendations in there. And as a digital marketer, I've read lots and lots of stuff on email marketing. And I really appreciated your perspective on how you did things. And we'll talk about the book here in just a minute, but tell us, if you would, a little bit on our audience, what inspired you to write a book about holistic email marketing? And how do you really see, Kath, that's different or maybe set apart from some of the other email marketing books that are out there on the marketplace today?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's do them in reverse. The books that are out in the market today, there's some amazing books out there. They're very tactically led. They're very setting you up almost step by step. So they're fantastic. Where my book starts and takes you on is beyond that, right? So it's repeat the basics. Let's put it all together and actually explain to you why. Let's really, okay, you're actually thinking that you're starting up at stage one, but you're actually starting at stage 4. You actually got to do these other 3 stages, which is like writing the strategy, really planning it out and everything like that. Most people start with, oh, let's go and build a marketing automation program, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So they're starting at the wrong place. So I left out my little intro bio thing that for 12, 14 years, I think it was over 12 years, I was the head email marketing trainer in England. So I trained for all of the big entities there, publishers, all the rest of it, email marketing, including the DMA. I did that, the DMA and the IDM, which are now together, but the IDM award and everything. So through all of this, I started to see that there's a lot of areas that we as email marketers are very underpaid, underappreciated, undervalued, overworked, and all the rest of it. So what happens is our email marketers tend to latch onto what they see as being a silver bullet, right? And that's really important because it's trying to save them time. It's trying to make sure that they're getting really good results, but doing it easily. But there's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of wrong advice out there. There's a lot of archaic advice out there, something that worked back then, but it doesn't work now. So what happens, and I'm not blaming the marketers for doing this, but that's what they tend to do that. So I could see people are doing things the wrong way. And they're not, unlike me, who's had 24 years of being able to think about email marketing
Mhm.
and to be able to see how the consumers have changed and how email marketing itself has changed. I've been able to put all that together and go, okay, we're going at it the wrong way. Because, okay, again, I don't want to bag out the ESPs. They're doing a great job,
Sure.
fantastic, all the rest of it. And they do their best to train us. And that, to be honest, is the main way that most of us learn is from our tech provider. And then speaking from their perspective as a tech provider, which is basically delivers the tactics. So that's
Mhm.
why we tend to be so tactically based rather than in a normal marketing channel would be more strategic based. And then we use the tactics to carry out the strategy. So what ends up happening then is that we're actually coming at it from the wrong way, where there's lots of wrong things that we're doing currently. And so I guess the book was, I've been speaking about all of these things for many years, writing about them, working with my clients, using them with my clients and everything. And then finally, everyone kept on saying, you should be writing a book, you should write a book. So I did, hoping it's going to get further reach than I would normally get anyhow, in order, because my heart has always been one for the marketer, two for the consumer, three for the businesses too, right? So I've got a heart for all three and I want them to all work out really well. So one of the things we as I need to do is teach the marketers how to do a better job so that email marketing is actually still their favorite channel of the consumer. And it is. And it has been for ages. And we have to keep it that way. And the only way we can do that is by doing a good job, which means that sometimes we have to. I talk a lot in the book about reframing, repositioning,
Mhm.
yeah, your mindset, really. And that's just changing what you've taken for granted, but because you've read it so many times, but it's not actually the best thing to do. And then I always, not preface, but basically end everything with test it. Exactly.
Absolutely. No, so true. One of the things I know I really appreciated in your book was your focus on customer-centric focus
Yeah.
and making sure that you're focused on what that customer needs. And I think that's one of the things that's changed over the years. From your perspective, Kath, as you've been involved in the industry, what are some of the key trends and changes that you've observed that maybe some of our audience who are entrepreneurs and business leaders,
Yeah.
business owners, maybe things they're not aware of, other than obviously being customer focused and testing, two very important things? What are some trends that you have seen are changing from maybe 5 or 10 years ago when a lot of our audience started learning about digital email
Mhm.
marketing?
Yes. Yeah. No, and I just realized I forgot to answer the first question too, but that ties in with this. So let me give you an example. What, 10 years or more ago, I created the holistic email marketing approach.
Mhm.
Okay. And I did that out of this trend. I saw there was this trend, a very distinct trend. You probably would remember it because everyone in digital marketing succumbed to it. And we're all talking about multi-channel and
Oh, yes.
omni-channel. We have to bring it all together. We have to make all the channels work together. And it was a great desire. It was a great plan. We started at it from the wrong place, right? Again, we started at from the technical perspective. We didn't start at it from the consumer's perspective. So what we're doing is straight away, we're trying to work this out from our brand centric approach. How do we make our channels work together for us? Oh, and the consumer, right? Whereas,
Absolutely.
so I went, we're doing it the wrong way. And so once we start talking about and focusing on multi channel, what are you thinking about straight away? You're thinking about connecting APIs, processes. You're thinking, oh, I just had a few more, but it's
That's okay.
all about you and making it
Right.
all I can connect and everything. I just went because I'm from Australia. So there we have holistic medicine is very prominent. So I've been brought up with the holistic approach and the holistic as far as medicine goes. And that is when, they'll look into your eyes and they'll say, okay, you've got a problem with your kidney and things. They're looking at your whole body. They don't just look at, oh, you've got a pain in your back. They look everywhere to diagnose because your body is telling you, even if the actual area is a problematic, you've got a problem elsewhere, it's still telling you that. So I just went, that's what we have to do. We have to look at the consumer. We have to look at them. We have to look at their needs. And we then need once we start focusing on them and we're taking that sort of approach, then we can bring everything in that holistic approach, that holistic way where all the channels are talking to each other, but they're talking to each other from the perspective of the consumer. So now we're going to do exactly the same thing as what we were doing before, but we've got a different focus. We're starting at a different place and we're looking at the consumer and how we can make it work for her, because this is the big catch, right? If we as marketers can deliver the result to our customers. Now, think about it. Our customers are our customers because they want something, or our prospects are because that you've got an interesting offer, or they've seen some sort of marketing or advertising of yours, or so on, right? So they have a need that they're interested in, or they've already bought from you. So, what if you can achieve their desire, their objective, the reason why they've come onto your list? Then do you know what? You by default are achieving yours. So it's a lot easier to give, to help, to enable the consumer to achieve their result, their desires, their objectives, than for you to be pushing and selling and everything. That's a hard way of doing it. So it's about looking at the consumer and then bringing in the channels so that they're giving that lovely holistic customer experience. Does that make sense?
It does. And I actually really appreciate your analogy to the holistic medicine and understanding that. I think it really helps understand how you're looking at email marketing and carrying that on through. And I couldn't agree with you more on what you're saying, Kath. It's so important that we focus on the customer journey and what's in it for them. And if we do, those groups, people, individuals that we're going to help as a business will naturally be attracted to, be attracted to what we're doing. And as a result, are going to build our business and we're going to have the results we wanted by focusing on the end users. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Great advice. So, talk to me. One of the things I hear from a lot of business owners nowadays is, Jonathan, with all the things going on in social media and everything else, all the other digital marketing channels, we talked a little bit about omnipresence and all that. Why should I care about email marketing? I've got my thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kath, as to why is email marketing still so incredibly important when it comes to digital marketing and businesses getting in front of their customers?
I know. And this is one of the reasons why I'm still in love with email after 24 years. It is constantly evolving. Everyone says, oh, email hasn't changed, but of course it has changed because it, because we're a push channel, right? That means that
Yes.
we're not waiting for our audience to come to us. We're pushing our messages to them. So we have to be responsive to what they're doing. And so we are continually optimizing and changing, and the consumers are changing their expectations of us. They're actually demanding a few things, and trends happen and sometimes the trends are most likely they're not going to be started by us, the marketer. They're actually started by the consumer. But we are ever evolving. We are a very cost effective channel. we are like I said, push channel, but we're the original push channel as well. And it survey after survey, new surveys just come out from the DMA in the UK. They've got a consumer tracker study, and they've gone and asked consumers all these amazing questions. And it's come out that absolutely email's their favorite channel to be getting their offers, to be getting their confirmation emails, to be getting all of those good things, right? They look to email for that. They take it seriously, and so we need to take it seriously. And it delivers it, you'll hear this stat time and time again. Both the two DMAs do it in the UK and the US, or ANA in the US. And they come out with the return on investment, something like, I think in the UK it's like £43 for every pound spent. So you get amazing return on investment, but that's also because it is that push channel. It's
Hmm.
also in this cookieless world, or cookieless soon to be world, right? You've got that unique ID, and you've got the ability to be personalizing, to be sending them meaningful, even if you don't have that much information on them, you can be personalizing them by sending them that abandoned cart email, which most providers will do quite easily with their items that they looked at the right time. And that makes it innately, like, incredibly personal to them. So email has so many strengths. And I think that's one of the, and basically the consumers have voted. And they've been voting for many years. We did go through that challenge with email
Hmm.
being spam. Oh, you're that spammer. Right.
Yes.
But now you don't hear that because ISPs are dealing really well with true spam. And then most email marketers want to do a really good job, and businesses want to do a good job. So they are staying legal and trying to follow as many best practices as possible. So all of that means that we are trying to do good by the consumer, and the consumer then is also rewarding us by clicking and converting, right?
Absolutely. No, and I here in the US, it's the same thing. I don't pay as close attention as you do, obviously, to the marketing associations, but we've been in that 40-to-1 return for the longest time here, as almost as long as I can remember. I founded our agency 13 years ago, and I believe it was in the 38-to-1 return then. So it's amazing how email has held that consistent return on investment for really over a decade.
Yes.
And that's just, I think that speaks to the strength, as you mentioned, of that push ability to get your message in front of clients that want to read it, and the ability to personalize it so that you can time it and categorize it to what they're looking for. Yeah,
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
answer.
Yes. And if you think about it, email is an amazing nudge channel as well. So if you want to get the same as a billboard effect, right? Say you've got a billboard every morning, Susie leaves her house and straight opposite her is this huge big billboard. And every day the sign changes and it's a different brand and everything. What is she most likely going to be doing when she's going out shopping? She's probably going to be gravitating to those brands. Or if they
Mhm.
rotate and everything, it's putting them front of mind. Now, email's the same. Even if they go through and they delete, and again, this tracker study shows stats like that. Even if they go through and they delete the email, they don't actually open it. They they don't click on it, and they're certainly not converting from it. There's a very good chance they're actually going to go and go just see your brand and go, oh, I want something from there. And they'll go and do a search for the brand, and they'll click on a PPC ad, or they'll click on an organic search. And then those guys are going, because we do last click attribution, right? Those guys actually
Absolutely.
get the benefit, they get the attribution, whereas actually email was the one that actually drove that. And because we are often the beginning, because we are that push channel, so we're often the beginning of the journey. So it's, we need to understand that even as an email that doesn't get actioned, it still has that branding effect. It still is putting
Mhm.
you above your competitors. And this is one of the arguments that's often made for sending more frequently. And that's a huge topic. We probably don't have time for it today.
I
But
say that could be an episode unto itself.
Indeed. But generally speaking, when I go and do an audit of my client, of my new client, we will prove to them that they're actually under mailing and that they could afford to mail more frequently, and then they would make more revenue. And that's because of you're only going to buy out every certain, however it is, say, depending on the buying period for that particular product and your service. But the more emails that are there just means that they're more likely to be going and looking at you when they have a need.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of that, what are some of the common mistakes, Kath, that you think people are making with email marketing, and any recommendations on how to avoid some of those common mistakes, like not sending frequently enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'll jump onto two pretty major ones, very common ones. The first one is subject lines and testing them using the open rate. It seems to be logical, right? Because we know that the subject line directly impacts whether someone's going to open an eyeball and read that email. So we go, okay, we want to actually, that's the metric we want to be testing. But if you go in and have a look and, hey, I call it the litmus test.
Yes.
Go to your database, find the top 10 campaigns based on open rates. Then go find the top 10 campaigns based on click rate. Then go find the top 10 campaigns based on conversion. And you're going to see there's a very little overlap between the three of them, which means that
Interesting.
you are testing your subject lines based on open rates. You're probably optimizing for the wrong result. And there's a whole heap of learnings and insights. And I've done gazillions of tests on all of this, and I can verify that this is so. There's actually a really easy formula. So essentially, if you're a publisher and you're rewarded on opens, right? Because that's what you're being paid on, open. Then what you need to do is do really short, generic subject lines. Because what happens is that you are appealing then to a wide array of people,
Mhm.
and they're reading whatever it is that they want to read into it that's so generic and so vague. They have their own needs. They read into it because we're all different. However, if you are a retailer and you're rewarded on sale, you want to drive the people that are most likely to convert, and don't want to disappoint them. So again, if you were to do that generic one, get that many people because you've just said sale 25% off today. Okay, fantastic. You're being specific. You're saying today, but turns out you're actually only having sale on tops. You're not, and dresses, right? You're not having
Mhm.
sale on the jeans, where I've opened it up because I'm like, great, I could do with new jeans. I'll get 25% of my new jeans. And then I open it up and then I'm disappointed and I don't click through because I don't want top orders. So the more specific you are, the more likely you're going to be to attract the right people who are going to end up converting. Again, this is a great test to be doing, and it happens time and time again, and we prove it over and over and over. And this actually comes back to one of the things that often used to be said: short subject lines are better than long subject lines. If you think about it, a short is more often going to be generic, and a long is going to be more often specific, right? So they're saying short subject lines for open rates are better than long subject lines, which is absolutely true. But if you're wanting clicks or conversions, more likely it's going to be the inverse. That's number one.
Great. How about number 2?
Number two, deleting your list, deleting your
Okay.
inactives. So nowadays, so this kind of thing happened because one, everyone's incredibly fearful of the unsubscribe.
Yes.
Fearful, like you wouldn't believe, right? No one has ever gone to prison for getting too many unsubscribes, right? You've never even received a big fine because it's not against your actually unsubscribes are to be embraced because there's a couple of benefits. One, it means that they're looking at you as being a legitimate, good quality marketer. Because otherwise they're not going to waste their time. They'll just hit
Mm,
the this is bad. They'll take the easy way out. But
very true.
unsubscribe, rolling down, clicking that, clicking the yes, I want to, and everything like that. They're taking their time because they respect you. So that is a really good indication. Okay. And it could just be things like your system doesn't allow them to update their address. So they have to unsubscribe and then resubscribe or something like that. Don't be afraid of the unsubscribes. But how this all happened was many years ago. One study was done by an ESP of their database, their client's database, and they found out that the majority of the spam complaints were coming from the inactive group. It's logical, right? So they just found that. So everyone then said, oh, we've got to stop mailing to the inactives. This is it from the vendor perspective,
Mm,
because they're going, that means that all these spam complaints means that we're going to get red uh, IPs or
yep.
blacklisted or something
Yep.
like that. We're going to have to deal with these issues. So if we can tell our customers just not to mail to them, then we're actually helping ourselves a lot because we've got reduced workload. This is literally what happened. And then suddenly everyone's going, well, that makes sense. That's logical. You get high spam complaints from the inactive group. You don't want to have spam complaints because then you get bad deliverability. If you get bad deliverability, it's going to impact your revenue and all the rest of it. So let's just stop mailing our inactives, right? From a logic perspective, you can buy into it. You could.
Absolutely.
You were very risk adverse. Yeah. But instead of understanding that one, and this is a really interesting one. So this is an anecdotal story, and I've heard it now quite a few times. And in fact, I've experienced it, but this one's a really good one. So my friend, he has his own business, and every year he'll buy about 30 computers from this particular computer. This was quite a few years ago from this particular computer brand, right? And every year what he would do is he had noted over the years that there were these trends. And then he knew that the bottom line, that the best price was always going to be in September. So what he would do is he would just get all of the offers and everything. When the time came, he would go through all of the emails. He would see all the specs, get up to speed with what's changed over the year and everything, know exactly what specification and what the best price is, all that kind of stuff, because he's gone and done his research using all of their offers, their email. But he doesn't open them up until August, the month before the cheapest thing. One year, he found that he'd actually stopped getting emails. He didn't have all of the emails. They had said, oh, we noticed that you're not opening your emails and we've unsubscribed you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that brand just shot themselves in the foot. We can't assume just because they're not opening or they're not clicking that they're not interested. It's just the timing may not be right. I've got another friend who only ever buys from Amazon once a year. That's it, once a year. And he'll buy everyone's wish list on his family's list. And that's his Christmas shopping done for the year. Okay. And he never buys anything in Amazon. So imagine if Amazon, and they wouldn't because they do, they know what they're doing.
Right.
Right. Did that. So, you've got to understand your business model, your customers, their buying cycles and everything. You can't just say a blanket, this is what you should do. But there were so many people. In fact, I was in tears one day when I'd been pitching for my client not to do it. They got pressured by their ESP so much. And then also by the C-suite who wanted to follow what the ESP did. They
Yeah.
did it. And they got rid of something like almost 60% of their database. And then they struggled financially for the next 2 years because we don't understand, because we're not doing the proper analysis. We are continually re-engaging those inactives. They're not always going to be inactive. They will come and they will buy from us again. And if they don't, then they'll unsubscribe or get themselves off the list. But
Exactly.
and I think that's the other thing too. We don't give our consumers enough credit to actually understand that they know what they want to do. If they want to get off the list, they will. They know how to do it. So, you know,
Absolutely.
or do we think that we have to be their saviors, as though they can't make a decision like that themselves? Yeah, there's lots of evidence that actually shows that doing something like that, which everyone considers to be quite best practice, and even when GDPR came in, I know you're based in the US, it does affect you guys if you're going to be marketing to Europe.
Right.
Most people should have a good basic idea of what the GDPR involves. But GDPR came and said you can't be mailing to lists that are older than so on. And again, they put down like they weren't, this is legislation, it's only 2 years. They didn't do anything like that. They were giving you a gauge, but most people read it as being, oh, 2 years. So if you're a car dealership and you can't, and that people only buy a car every 3, 4 years, like, that can't happen. And in insurance and all this sort of stuff too. So I think sometimes we can be our own worst enemies as email
Absolutely.
list because we're wanting to be so proactively good, right? Because we want to get great results. And so we're thinking this is what we should do. And that's why I have a problem with things that are touted as being best practice. Because to be honest, to me, a best practice is something that is good for everyone within email marketing. Right? Very
Great
few.
feedback.
So, it, it's, so getting your domains authenticated, absolutely right. Doing something like that, they might be good for some brands. It might be needed for them and other brands. So you have to. But anyhow, back to the GDPR. No,
Yeah.
but you have to read in, and then you have to go and make the documentation that supports why you're actually going to be emailing names that are 4 years old because that's your
Ex-
buying. Okay. Yeah.
So you shared some amazing tips there and really stuff that I don't even think about. Kath, as our audience is watching and going, you know what? I need some help with my email marketing. I need some advice. How, what would you recommend as far as your services, as far as other resources? When should they reach out to a professional like yourself? When should they start with your book? What would you recommend for these business owners that are doing email marketing, maybe or maybe not having good luck, but want to improve what they're doing? They want to make it better. What would you recommend they do next?
Yes. Okay. Sure. Read the book. It's actually the audio book is on its way, as in it's there, and whenever they decide to decree, whenever Audible decrees that it's ready, it'll be going live. So the book's there. I write lots and lots of articles. I'm all over the place. Martech, Pixie, my site. You can go to Holistic Email Marketing. There's a whole heap of blogs there and everything. There are some amazing people out there who are so smart. Chad White's one of them. He's also he's got onto his fourth edition of Email Marketing Rules.
Yeah, we
Which,
just interviewed him. Great
oh,
interview.
seriously, he's awesome. And then he just writes so much as well. Then there are some really good sites. I do Martech. You've got some really clever people such as Ryan Phelan. He
Mhm.
also writes Martech, as do I, and go in. And that's a nice balance also tends to be between because they're Martech, right? So we're talking tech, but also it's getting that balance between a strategic side of things as well, and understanding the consumers. Yeah, there's a bunch of resources out there. We've also got a lot of guides and reports and things like that get downloaded on a daily basis. So you can go and check all of those out. And then, of course, if you do want to reach out for any assistance, we can do lots of things. We've got a set rate for audits and strategies. We do consultant on hand hours, which our customers love because they're basically me coaching you. I had one of those sessions today and I just walked away. They just said, oh my goodness, their minds were boggling with everything we talked about. So there's there's those kind of things that you can be doing too, and they're very affordable. So there's lots of different options, but definitely one of the things I would say, just because, and I have written a few articles out there about bad best practices. Okay.
Yes.
Just understand, read through everything that you're reading and saying, are they starting at the right place? Is this just a tactical? And just because it's tactical doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing to do. But because we obviously need to do tactics. So I'm not anti-tactics, of course I'm not. But it's just where you start. Is that tactic being informed by the overall arching strategy that's in place? Or is it just a random tactic and then you've got another random tactic and then another one? Because they've all been built at different times with different objectives in mind and everything. And they don't actually relate to each other at all. And so
Mhm.
the customer is going to get potentially a disconnected experience receiving all of them. Start to think about what it is that you really want, how you want to be looking, improving. Read lots of articles, read them with a grain of salt, and always say, I'm going to test this out. Or go to some really respected authors and writers that you really respect, such as yourself, Jonathan, and
Thank you.
go and see if they actually support what also is being said. Because I hate to say this, but there's a lot of regurgitation out there, and it's not necessarily regurgitation of factual or verifiable recommendations.
No, absolutely. I think that's excellent advice. And I certainly do want to encourage everybody listening to the podcast. If you've got questions about email marketing and the best way to do it, reaching out to someone like Kath at Holistic Email Marketing is absolutely a great way to begin that process. That's her specialty. That's what she and her team know. And I want to just encourage you to reach out through their website or whatever. If you happen to be driving, Kath, I know a lot of our listeners actually are driving while they're listening to the podcast. We're going to put all of your links here in the podcast, but just so that everybody needs to know, I believe it's holisticemailmarketing.com, correct?
Correct. That's all right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if you're listening and driving, go to holisticemailmarketing.com. As Kath said, she's got a number of amazing articles out there. She updates it regularly. And don't hesitate to reach out and find out about her consulting. I'm You'd be amazed what some time with her could do to help improve your email deliverability, your campaigns, and probably most importantly, your bottom line. So, Kath, we really appreciate your time today. We are obviously known as the 91 Day Success Podcast. I do have one more question for you. I always love to hear everybody's perspective on this, but I
Mm.
don't know how things are in your part of the world at the moment, of us being in the US. But obviously, there's sometimes the economy is a little bit up in the air, and there's a lot of people thinking about, boy, what would happen if I had to start a new business? And so the question is, if you had to start a new business and everything in life was good, you had a home, you had your car, you had your food, but you had $1,000 or £1,000 to invest in a new business, what would you do over the first 3 months, the first 91 days, to build a solid foundation to build a business on over time?
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
Yes. And it was interesting because when I first heard it, I went, oh, I probably wouldn't do what I did.
We learn from
Because,
experience.
but when I did it, there was like nothing there. Nowadays, oh my goodness. Hey, LinkedIn, just go there, connect, have conversations, and focus on building a list. That would be
Mm,
my big thing. Okay. And you can do that. And that's just with you being creative, create some content that's really nice and appealing and consumable, and just go around the place and share it and start to build that list. And I think you need to give yourself patience as well. But I think if you can have those conversations, I wish I had LinkedIn. Seriously, I still don't use it like I should use. But as a platform for generating interest, connections, leads, I used to have to go and do this in person. And there was
yes.
30 people in the room, and then that was it. That was it for the night. Whereas now, there's so many things that you can be doing, and even attending webinars.
Hmm.
So in webinars, ask questions, start getting known, start looking to see who's there, Who else is asking questions? And just things like this. Alliances are also a very good thing to do when you're starting up. Make alliances of not obviously your competitor, but of complementary services. They can feed into you and you can feed into them and you can help each other that way. That's the kind of thing. So yeah, alliances and networking on LinkedIn or in person and focusing on making a list, growing a list organically.
I think that's great advice. And I think building a list is something that, regardless of where you're at in your business, if you don't have a list and you're not actively focused on building it, it's time to do that, because the best time was 10 years ago. The next
Yeah.
best time to start is today. So get started on that list. Yeah, absolutely. Kath, again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I am so excited to interview you and have the opportunity to chat with you after reading your book. And just as a reminder to everybody, Kath recommended LinkedIn, and that's actually how she and I connected. I had discovered Kath's book. I reached out to her on LinkedIn. She responded, and look at this, we're having a conversation. So
So,
don't ever diminish that power of LinkedIn. It really is amazing.
yeah.
For all of you that have been with us for the rest of the podcast, we want to say thank you. We really appreciate your time, and we want to have you go make it a great day, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Kath.